The socket wrench slipped from my oil-slicked hands, clanging against the gravel driveway as my wife Julia's voice floated out from our kitchen window. It was well past midnight, and here I was, tinkering with my old Chevy pickup because taking it to a shop wasn't in the budget anymore. Not since Julia started pouring our cash into her professional growth courses and fancy outfits. "Oh, Carla, you wouldn't believe what he did today," Julia said, her tone dripping with that fake charm she used when she was tearing me down. "Mark actually suggested we have a date night this weekend. Can you imagine? After 16 years of marriage, he thinks a burger joint in town is going to fix our problems." I froze, my fingers still groping for the wrench. Carla Diaz was Julia's closest friend from the ad agency where they both worked. Carla had never warmed to me, made that clear when Julia and I tied the knot. "Honestly, Carla, sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if I'd married someone with real drive. Someone like Victor." My gut twisted. Victor Hayes was Julia's boss at the agency, the kind of guy who drove a sleek Audi and wore suits that cost more than my monthly take from my small computer repair gig. "Victor and I have been putting in long hours on the Thompson project," Julia went on. "Late nights, client dinners, that trip to Miami last month. He's everything Mark isn't. Polished, driven, successful. And Carla, I've got to tell you something, but you can't breathe a word." I edged closer to the window, my pulse pounding in my chest. "Victor and we've been getting close. Really close, if you catch my drift. And God, Carla, it's thrilling. He makes me feel like I'm alive again, not just some guy's wife stuck with a husband who fixes laptops for a living." The wrench slipped again, smacking my boot. I swallowed a curse and pressed myself against the house. "The best part? Mark's completely in the dark," Julia said. "He thinks our marriage is on the upswing because I've been so happy lately. No clue his dull little wife is having the time of her life with her boss. Last Wednesday, when I told Mark I was at a branding workshop, Victor took me to a swanky hotel downtown. We ordered champagne and didn't leave the room for hours." Carla's laugh crackled through the phone. "Julia, you're awful, but good for you. Mark's such a nobody. What kind of man lets his wife be the main earner while he messes with broken computers in that sad little shop?" "Exactly," Julia said. "And I'm not even worried about him finding out. What's he going to do? Leave me? He'd lose the house, half his business, probably end up paying me alimony. Mark's too spineless to walk away and way too dense to figure it out." My hands shook, anger and shame burning through me like wildfire. "Plus," Julia added, "Victor's hinting at a promotion to senior creative lead. Picture me running my own team, pulling 6 figures while Mark keeps tinkering in his little shop, thinking he's got a devoted wife who loves him." "You're ruthless, Julia, but I'm here for it," Carla said. "How long can you keep this up?" "As long as I want," Julia replied. "Victor's obsessed with me, and Mark's so desperate to keep this marriage afloat, he'll buy any excuse I feed him. I've got it all. Stability with Mark and fireworks with Victor. Why would I give that up?" I stood there in my driveway, covered in grease and sweat, listening to my wife of 16 years talk about me like I was some pitiful charity case she was saddled with. This was the woman I'd worked grueling hours to support while she climbed the career ladder. The woman I'd trusted when she said we were a team, building a life together. Julia's voice grew louder, closer to the window. "I should go, Carla. Mark's probably wondering where I am. I'll say I was on a call with a client in Seattle or something. He always falls for it." Her footsteps faded, likely heading upstairs to our bedroom. Our bedroom, where she'd slide in beside me, playing the part of a loving wife while dreaming of Victor Hayes and their hotel escapades. I gathered my tools with trembling hands and shuffled to my garage workshop. 16 years. 16 years of marriage, of believing we were partners. That love and loyalty meant something. My phone pinged, a text from Julia. "Headed to bed. Miss you, hon." I stared at that little heart emoji, thinking how effortless it was for her to lie, how simple it was to shatter my world with a few late-night calls and hotel romps. But Julia had made a critical error in her chat with Carla. She'd called me spineless, dense, a nobody who'd never catch on. I flipped open my laptop and started searching. If Julia wanted to play dirty, I'd show her what this nobody could do. First up, private investigators in our area. Gus Harlan was exactly what you'd picture for a PI. Rough around the edges, face lined like old leather, wearing a suit that looked like it belonged in a thrift store. His office reeked of burnt coffee and cheap cigars, with a view of a rundown strip mall parking lot that hadn't seen better days since the 80s. "So, Your wife's stepping out, Gus said, kicking back in his creaky chair. And you want the dirt? I want it all, I told him. Photos, videos, records of where they go, when they meet, how long this has been going on. I need enough to make sure she can't talk her way out of it. Gus eyed me for a moment. You sure about this, Mark? Sometimes it's better not to know. Once you see the truth, it sticks with you. She called me a nobody, I said. Said I was too dense and spineless to figure it out. Said I'd never leave her because I'd lose everything. Gus nodded, a knowing glint in his eye. Hurt pride. That'll light a fire every time. He slid a contract across his desk. My rate's $60 an hour plus expenses. I'll need a $500 retainer up front. I wrote the check. The money I handed over to Gus was supposed to go toward a surprise for Julia's birthday. How long will this take? I asked, leaning against the doorframe of his dingy office. If she's as reckless as you say, probably not long, Gus replied, tucking the check into his desk. Cheaters get cocky when they think they're untouchable. They start slipping up. He leaned forward. What's her routine? I rattled off Julia's schedule. Her job at the ad agency, her yoga classes, the diner where she met her friends. It felt cold, boiling my wife's life down to a list of places and times. As I turned to leave, Gus called out, One last thing, Mark. Whatever you're thinking of doing with this, keep it above board. I've seen too many guys let their anger call the shots and regret it. I'm not looking to do anything dumb, I said. But as I walked to my truck, I wasn't entirely convinced that was true. The next few days were pure hell. Julia went through her usual routine, kissing me goodbye before work, asking about my day when she got home, curling up next to me in bed like nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing with Gus's updates. Subject met male individual at a cafe on Main Street, 8:12 p.m. Subject and same male entered the Grandview Hotel downtown, 7:03 p.m. Subject left hotel alone, 10:47 p.m. Each message hit like a punch to the gut. I started watching Julia's face when she came home, searching for any hint of guilt, any flicker of smugness. Nothing. She was smooth, practiced. How was work, babe? She'd ask, tossing her jacket on the couch and brushing a kiss across my cheek, probably still warm from Victor Hayes. Fine, I'd mutter. How'd the Thompson project go? Oh, client meetings, she'd say with a sigh. Victor and I were up late polishing the pitch. I'm wiped. Wiped from rolling around with your boss in a hotel bed, I'd think, but I'd just nod and ask if she wanted me to heat up some leftovers. The real blow came on a Wednesday. Gus called instead of texting. Mark, you gotta see this, he said. Can you swing by my office? 20 minutes later, I was slouched in a chair as Gus pulled up photos on his laptop. The first few were what you'd expect. Julia and Victor strolling into the hotel, sitting close at a fancy bistro, his hand resting on her back. Standard affair stuff, Gus said, but then I hit the jackpot. He clicked to the next image, and my stomach lurched. It was Julia and Victor in a hotel room, curtains wide open, caught crystal clear through Gus's long lens. They were locked in a kiss, Victor's fingers twisted in Julia's hair, her shirt half unbuttoned. There's more, Gus said, his voice low. The next photos were worse. Julia straddling Victor on the bed, his hands roaming her body, her face lit up with the same passion I used to see when we were first married. Sorry you have to see this, Gus said, but you wanted the full picture. What else you got? I asked, my voice tight. He slid a folder across the desk, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, a paper trail stretching back 5 months. 5 months of Julia lying to my face, coming home to me after being with him, letting me think we were patching things up while she treated me like a fallback plan. One more thing, Gus added. I tailed them to a company event last Saturday. She told you it was a client dinner, right? I nodded. It was a party. I got video. He turned the laptop toward me. Brace yourself, this one's tough. The footage was grainy, shot from a distance, but clear enough. Julia, in a dress I'd never seen, was dancing with Victor at what looked like an office bash. But it wasn't just dancing. They were all over each other, moving like horny kids at a club, his hands wandering while their coworkers smirked and watched. The worst part? Julia's face. She looked happier than she'd been with me in years, glowing in a way I hadn't seen since our early days. Got about 12 minutes of this, Gus said. They weren't exactly discreet. I shut the laptop. That's enough. What's your next move? Gus asked. I thought about Julia's words from that night by the kitchen window, calling me spineless, a nobody, too clueless to catch on. Laughing with Carla about how easy I was to dupe. I need everything, I said. Photos, videos, receipts, all of it. Mark, Gus said, his tone cautious. What are you cooking up? I'm going to show my wife she bet on the wrong guy. Gus handed me a USB drive. It's all here. Just don't do anything that'll get you locked up. I pocketed the drive and stood. Don't worry, Gus. I'm not aiming to end up in a cell. But I was damn sure planning to make Julia regret her choices. The weekend gave me time to think. Julia was off at another client meeting, probably another hotel romp with Victor, which left me alone to weigh my options. The smart move would have been to lawyer up, use Gus's evidence to secure a clean divorce, and walk away. Start fresh. But Julia's voice kept echoing in my head, mocking me, calling me a coward who'd never figure it out. I wasn't ready to let that go. Not yet. Julia's mocking laughter from that night in the kitchen, the way she'd torn our marriage apart to Carla with such casual venom, the smug certainty that I'd never push back, it burned in my chest. She wanted to see what this nobody could do? All right, I'd give her a show. Monday morning, I tailed Victor to his office complex. He rolled up in a glossy black Audi, parking in the reserved executive spot like he was king of the hill. I waited until the lunch hour when the garage was quiet. Victor's car sat there, shining under the harsh lights, a gleaming symbol of everything he had that I didn't. Money, status, my wife. I grabbed the bag of supplies I'd picked up at the hardware store. Sugar in the gas tank was a myth, but I had other ways to make his day less pleasant. First, I let the air out of all 4 tires. Not slashed, just deflated, nothing too illegal. Then with washable spray paint, I scrawled "Cheaters, get flat" across his windshield. Nothing permanent, just enough to turn heads. The final touch was a note slipped onto the driver's seat. I'd learned to pick locks as a kid, a trick that came in handy. Hope the ride's worth it, Vic. Nobody. I was back at my shop before Victor likely noticed, but I didn't wait long for a reaction. Around 3 p.m., my phone pinged with a text from Julia. Someone trashed Victor's car at work, wrote awful stuff on it. He's pissed. Some people can't handle someone else's success. I texted back, that's rough. Any clue who'd do that? Probably some jealous coworker or rival. Victor's checking security footage. I smirked. I'd scoped out the garage. Those cameras hadn't worked in months. That night, Julia came home on edge, trying to play it cool but failing. How was your day? I asked, same as always. Fine, she muttered, her voice sharp. Just some workplace drama. The thing with Victor's car? I prodded. She shot me a look. How'd you know it was Victor's? You texted me, remember? Said someone messed with your boss's car. She relaxed a bit. Right. Sorry, it's been a long day. Victor's all worked up about it. He thinks someone might know about... She stopped short. Know about what? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Nothing. Just some sensitive client stuff. You know how bosses get paranoid. I nodded, playing the understanding husband. That night, as Julia lay beside me, probably stewing over her rattled boyfriend, I stared at the ceiling, plotting my next step. The car stunt felt good, but it was just the warm-up. I needed something with real impact. I kept thinking about that video Gus showed me. Julia and Victor grinding on each other at the company party, their co-workers snickering. What if that footage reached a bigger audience? I pulled out my laptop and started digging into the agency's email system. Years ago, Julia had shared her login when I fixed her computer, and she'd never changed it. Getting in was a breeze. Within an hour, I had the full company directory, every employee, from interns to execs. The party video was gold. Clear shots of Julia and Victor's unprofessional display, the kind of thing that could tank their careers if it spread. I set up a burner email account and drafted a message. Thought you'd like to see how your creative lead and her boss act at company events. Maybe check your HR policies. I attached the video and sent it to the entire directory. Marketing, finance, HR, the works. Then I snapped the laptop shut and went to bed. The next morning, Julia's phone started blowing up at 5:30 a.m. What? She mumbled, still half asleep, then shot upright. Carla, slow down. What are you talking about? I pretended to doze as she slipped into the bathroom, but I caught every word. What do you mean everyone saw it? How'd that even happen? A long pause. Oh my God, this can't be real. Another pause. No, I don't know who sent it. Victor and I were so careful. Her voice cracked, and I heard soft sobs. Carla, what am I gonna do? If the board sees this, we're done. Victor could get fired, and I can kiss that promotion goodbye. When she crawled back into bed, her face was ghost white, hands trembling. Everything okay? I asked, sitting up and resting a hand on her shoulder. Someone emailed a video of me and Victor to the whole company, she whispered, from the holiday party. We were just dancing, but it looks bad. That's awful, I said, keeping my voice soft. Who'd do something like that? I don't know. She leaned into me, shaking. Mark, I need to tell you something. Victor and I have been working closely on this project, and people are talking, assuming things. She was still spinning lies, turning her affair into work and assumptions. What kind of assumptions? I asked. That there's something between us, which is crazy, obviously. I'm married to you, I love you, but you know how office rumors go. Sure, I said, rubbing her back. It'll blow over. People will see it's just gossip. But even as I played the comforting husband, I was already mapping out the next move in my head. Julia thought she was dealing with some random troublemaker who'd gotten lucky with a video. She had no clue her nobody husband was just warming up. The fallout was instant and glorious. For 3 days, Julia was glued to her phone, fielding calls from coworkers, scrambling to do damage control, and whispering with Victor about crisis strategies. The real fun started when our friends got involved. It began with Tom and Rachel Carver, no relation to Julia's project, just a cruel coincidence. Tom and I went way back to college, and Rachel and Julia bonded over craft beer and griping about their lives. Tom called me Thursday night while Julia was at another emergency work meeting. Mark, I gotta ask you something, man to man, he said. Rachel saw something online, a video of Julia at some company party, getting real cozy with her boss. I know things can get twisted, but we're worried about you. I sighed, long and heavy. Yeah, I heard about it. Julia's pretty shaken up. So there's nothing going on with her and this Victor guy? This was my chance. I could have spilled everything to Tom, shown him Gus's evidence, and had my oldest friend in my corner. Instead, I chose to play the loyal husband, defending Julia's honor to keep my cover while I kept up my campaign. Tom, you've known Julia for years, I said. You really think she'd step out on me? No way, man, but that video was intense, Tom replied. It was a work party. People get drunk, dance a little too close, and it looks worse than it is. You know how Rachel gets after a couple beers? Tom chuckled. True, Rachel can get clingy when she's tipsy. Exactly. Look, Julia and I have had some rough patches, but we're working it out. The last thing we need is people stirring up rumors about an affair. All right, I hear you, Tom said. Rachel was just worried about you guys. I appreciate it, but we're solid. Hanging up, I felt a pang of guilt. Tom was a good friend, and I just lied to his face to protect the wife who was betraying me. But I needed to keep the act going a bit longer. Then came a call from Greg Palmer, another buddy from our weekly poker nights. Greg wasn't as tactful as Tom. Mark, what's the deal with Julia? He demanded. What are you talking about? My wife saw that video of her practically climbing her boss at some office party. Everyone's buzzing about it. Greg had never been Julia's biggest fan, always saying she acted too high and mighty. It's just gossip getting out of hand, I said. Come on, Mark, I saw it. That wasn't just dancing. She was all over that guy. Greg, I don't want to get into it. Look, we've been friends for over a decade, he said. I'm going to be real with you. Julia's cheating. Everyone sees it but you. The irony almost made me laugh. Everyone sees it but me. You're in denial, man, Greg pressed. Nobody wants to admit their wife's stepping out, but you gotta face it. Face what, Greg? That Julia thinks she's too good for you and found herself a big-shot boyfriend. You're a solid guy, Mark, but she's always acted like she settled when she married you. Now she's got someone who fits her high-flying dreams. My blood started to boil, not because Greg was wrong, but because he was dead on and didn't know I was already in on it. So what do you want me to do, I asked. Get a lawyer, hire a PI, cover your ass before she cleans you out. You're telling me to spy on my own wife? I'm telling you to wake up before it's too late. The call ended with Greg pissed at my stubbornness and me playing the clueless husband who couldn't see the truth staring him in the face. The real gut punch came when Rachel Carver called Julia directly. I only caught Julia's side of the conversation, but it was enough. Rachel, I can't believe you'd say that to me, Julia snapped. A pause. No, there's nothing going on with Victor. We just work together. Another pause and her tone turned icy. You know what, Rachel? If that's what you think of me, maybe we're not friends anymore. Another pause. No, I don't want to talk about it. I thought you knew me better. Julia hung up and spun to face me. Rachel Carver just accused me of sleeping with Victor. Can you believe her? 10 years of friendship, and one stupid video makes her think the worst of me. What did you tell her? I asked. The truth, that it's nothing, just vicious gossip. I'm hurt she'd even think I'd do that. What did she say? Julia's jaw clenched. She said she's looking out for you, didn't want you hurt by a cheating wife. That's kind of nice of her, caring about us, I said. Nice, Julia glared. She practically called me a slut, Mark. How's that nice? She's just worried about me, about our marriage. Maybe she's being a good friend. A good friend would trust me, not jump to conclusions over some out-of-context video. I nodded, but inside I was struck by how Rachel had seen through Julia's lies when I was still playing the fool. The next week, the social fallout kept piling up. Tom and Rachel stopped inviting us to their barbecues. Greg made it clear he thought I was a chump for staying with Julia. Other friends in our circle either picked sides or ghosted us entirely. Julia was livid about losing friends, but blamed it on petty jealousy. They're just envious, she said one night over a quiet dinner. Jealous of my career, my work with high-class people, that I'm not settling for a boring life like their stay-at-home wives who live for gossip. I looked at her across the table, stunned that she genuinely saw herself as the victim, persecuted by small-minded folks who couldn't handle her sophisticated fling with her boss. Her delusion was almost admirable, but I was about to blow it apart. I spent 2 weeks planning a family dinner. Julia's parents, Edward and Diane, lived an hour away in a ritzy suburb and had always thought their daughter was married down when she picked me over the doctor she dated in college. My folks were long gone, but Julia's family never let me forget I was lucky to be part of their upscale world. Perfect. We should have your parents over for dinner, I told Julia one evening. It's been a while, and with all this work stress, some family time might do you good. Julia looked surprised. I rarely suggested seeing her folks, mostly because they spent every visit subtly jabbing at my job, my lack of a degree, my unimpressive life. That's actually sweet, Mark, she said. You're right, it'd be nice. Why don't we invite Carla too, and maybe your sister Ellen and her husband? The whole crew? I asked, raising an eyebrow. I think it'd be good, she said, her face lighting up. Show everyone we're solid, that all this video nonsense is just rumors. If only you knew, I thought. I spent the week prepping, not just the dinner. Julia insisted on ordering from her favorite upscale bistro, but the real show was coming. Gus had handed me all the evidence on a USB drive, but I needed to deliver it in a way that it hit hard. I rented a projector and set it up in our dining room, telling Julia it was for a slideshow of family memories after dinner. She thought it was a sweet gesture. The guests showed up Saturday night. Julia's parents, Harold and Elaine Foster, arrived with their usual smug grins and veiled jabs about our quaint little house. Julia's brother Tim and his wife Lori were less hostile but still treated me like the family letdown. Carla Diaz rolled in last, wrapping me in a fake hug that made my skin crawl. She'd been Julia's cheerleader through this whole affair, probably helped plan some of their hotel hookups. Mark, you're looking great, Carla said, all syrupy. Julia's so lucky to have such a rock-solid husband with all this work drama. Just doing what I can for her, I replied, forcing a smile. Dinner went about as expected. Harold held court, droning on about his latest golf trip and his hot takes on the stock market. Elaine dropped not-so-subtle hints about Julia's high-pressure job, suggesting she should focus on settling down instead of chasing promotions. Actually, Mom, Julia cut in, work's going great. Victor thinks I'm a strong contender for senior creative lead. Victor? Tim asked, raising an eyebrow. Your boss? Yeah, he's been super supportive, really sees my potential. Julia and Carla swapped a quick glance across the table. If only they knew what was coming. That's wonderful, dear, Elaine said. It's so important to have a mentor who values your skills. Victor's been incredible, Julia went on. He's taught me so much about leadership, what it takes to climb the ladder. We work really closely. How closely? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Julia's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just curious about your work dynamic. You spend a lot of late nights together. That's what it takes to get ahead, Mark, she said, her tone sharp. Some people get that kind of dedication. The jab was clear. Victor understood ambition, unlike her husband, who was happy running his little repair shop. Time for dessert, I said, standing. But first, a little surprise. I dimmed the lights and fired up the projector. I thought it'd be fun to share some shots from Julia's recent work events. She's been killing it, and I'm so proud of her success. Julia looked puzzled but flattered. Mark, what's this about? Just celebrating my amazing wife and her achievements? The first image hit the dining room wall, a photo of Julia and Victor strolling into the Grandview Hotel, his hand on her lower back, both of them looking eager to get upstairs. Elaine gasped. Harold's wine glass hit the table with a clink. "Mark, what is this?" Julia's voice was laced with panic. "Just some shots from your work meetings, babe. You know, where you and Victor work so closely." The next slide showed them in the hotel room, Julia straddling Victor on the bed, her shirt half off, his hands all over her. "Oh my God," Lori whispered. Tim shot to his feet. "What the hell is this?" I wasn't done. The next slide was a montage of hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and credit card statements, a clear trail of Julia's affair going back 5 months. "Mark, stop this now." Julia lunged for the projector, but I blocked her path. "Why? I thought you'd want your family to see how successful you've been, how tight you and Victor are." "You bastard," Carla hissed, her face pale. "How'd you get these?" "Same way Julia got Victor's room key. Same way she's been lying to everyone here for months." Harold finally spoke, his voice shaking. "Julia, tell me this isn't what it looks like." Tears streamed down Julia's face as she turned to her father. "Dad, I can explain. It's not what you think." "Really?" I clicked to the next slide, the video from the company party. "Because it looks like my wife's been sleeping with her boss while telling everyone what a great husband she's got." The footage played, showing Julia and Victor grinding on each other at the office bash, co-workers egging them on. Elaine started sobbing. "Julia, how could you do this to Mark? To your marriage?" "You don't get it," Julia said, desperate. "Mark and I have been drifting apart. Victor and I, we connect differently." "By hooking up in hotel rooms?" Tim's voice dripped with disgust. "Jesus, Julia, what's wrong with you?" Carla jumped in, defending her friend. "You people don't understand the stress Julia's under at work. These things happen sometimes." "These things?" I turned to Carla. "You mean cheating? Betraying your husband? Lying to your family?" "You had no right to spy on her," Carla snapped. "What kind of husband hires a PI to tail his own wife? The kind whose wife calls him a nobody behind his back." I shot back. "The kind whose wife brags to her friends about how clueless and pathetic he is." I clicked to the final slide, a transcript of the phone call I'd overheard that night in the driveway. Julia's own words painting me as a spineless fool who'd never catch on. The room went quiet as everyone read her brutal take on our marriage, her smug confidence that she could keep me in the dark forever. "Julia," Harold said, his voice barely controlled, "is this really what you think of your husband?" Julia looked around at her family's shocked, disappointed faces. Her perfect image was in tatters. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't know what it's like being married to someone with no ambition. Mark's happy fixing computers forever, while I'm trying to build something real by cheating on him." Elaine's voice cut like a knife. "By humiliating him." "I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt," Julia pleaded. Tim stood, his face red with anger. "You didn't mean to get caught, you mean." "Tim, please." "No," Tim cut her off. "Mark's worth 10 of you. He's been nothing but loyal while you've been sneaking around with your boss like some—" "Don't you dare," Julia snapped. "Don't you dare judge me." "I'll judge whoever I want," Tim fired back, "especially my sister who's been cheating and lying to everyone." Julia turned on me, her eyes blazing. "You think you're so smart, don't you, Mark? You think you've won? Well, congrats. You've wrecked our marriage, humiliated me in front of my family, and proved you're just as petty and vengeful as I always thought." "I wrecked our marriage?" I laughed, bitter. "Julia, I'm not the one sleeping with my boss for 5 months." "At least Victor values me," she spat. "He sees my potential instead of dragging me down to his level." "His level?" Tim jumped in again. "What's that supposed to mean? The level where people keep their promises, don't lie, and don't betray the ones who love them?" Julia whirled on her brother, eyes blazing. "You have no clue what my marriage has been like, Tim. Stuck with someone who's got no drive, no class, no idea what I need to thrive." "What do you need?" Elaine's voice was like a blade. "What you need, young lady, is to take a long, hard look in the mirror." "Don't lecture me, Mom," Julia shot back. "You've never gotten me or supported my career." "I never told you to betray your husband to get ahead," Elaine snapped. The room erupted from there. Julia against her whole family, all of them stunned by her affair and her attitude toward me. Carla tried to back her up, which only fanned the flames. Tim told Carla to butt out of family matters. Harold demanded to know how long Julia had planned to ditch me. Elaine wanted answers about how Julia could hurt everyone who cared about her. I sat back, watching my wife's world crumble, her family turning on her as they saw her for who she'd become. Her excuses grew weaker, more desperate with every word. Finally, Harold stood. "Julia, you need to figure out what you want from life. And Mark, I owe you an apology. I thought you weren't good enough for my daughter. I was wrong. She's not good enough for you." He and Elaine left without a word to Julia. Tim and Lori followed, but Tim paused at the door. "Mark, if you need a lawyer, a place to crash, anything, you call me." I nodded. "Thanks." After they left, it was just me, Julia, and Carla in the dining room, the projector still glowing with the transcript of Julia's phone call. "Happy now?" Julia's voice was hollow. "You've turned my whole family against me." "I didn't turn them against you, Julia," I said. "I just showed them who you are." "And who am I, Mark?" I looked at my soon-to-be ex-wife, feeling not anger or pain, but a cold, hard satisfaction. "You're exactly what you called me that night on the phone with Carla. Nobody. The difference is, I'm not your nobody anymore." The weeks after the dinner were a haze of lawyers, paperwork, and tense silence. Julia moved in with Carla temporarily, sparing us the misery of sharing a house while our marriage fell apart. The divorce was straightforward. Gus's evidence made it airtight, and Julia's lawyer told her not to fight the adultery claim. She'd get her share of our assets, but no alimony or stake in my business. Still, I wasn't done. Julia had called me spineless, a nobody who'd never fight back, humiliating me for months while giggling about it with her friends. The divorce was just paperwork. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. My chance came with the Willow Creek Neighborhood Association's annual summer cookout, the biggest event in our community, with over 200 people, neighbors, local shop owners, civic leaders. Julia loved that cookout, always prepping for weeks, picking the perfect dress, planning how to flaunt her success and charm. It was her stage to prove she was above the suburban moms and working-class guys around us. This year's theme was Fresh Starts. Couldn't have been more fitting. I offered to handle the audiovisual setup. The association head, Linda Harper, was thrilled to have someone with tech skills manage the sound system and projector for the community highlight reel. "Mark, you're a godsend," Linda said as I tested the mic in Willow Creek Park. "I know this divorce has been tough." Word of Julia's affair had spread like wildfire. Small-town gossip travels fast. "I'm hanging in there," I said. "Honestly, this cookout's going to be good for me. Cathartic." Linda gave me a warm smile. "You've got the whole neighborhood behind you. What Julia did, it's just awful." The consensus was clear. Julia was the cheater, the liar, and the community had judged her. She didn't know it yet, holed up at Carla's across town. Friday night, I got a text from her. "Mark, I know things are rough, but I want to come to the cookout tomorrow. I have friends there, and it's not fair for you to keep me from neighborhood events." I texted back, "You should absolutely come. Everyone's dying to see you." Saturday was picture perfect. Sunny, warm, a breeze carrying the scent of grilled burgers and brats across the park. Families sprawled on blankets, kids chased each other, and adults milled around with beers, swapping stories. I worked the crowd like a pro, shaking hands, accepting sympathy for my marriage, and nodding as folks praised how I was holding up. "You're better off without her, Mark," said Mrs. Peterson, our next-door neighbor. "She didn't deserve you." I smiled, thanked her, and kept moving, setting the stage for what was coming. Mrs. Larson from down the street shook her head. "Julia always acted like she was above everyone else," she said. "Forgot her roots." "That fancy job went straight to her head," added Pete Sullivan, who ran the local auto shop. "The way she treated you, Mark, just plain wrong." Linda Harper chimed in. "Carrying on with her boss like that? Disgraceful." I nodded, soaking up their support while scanning the crowd. Julia hadn't shown up yet, but I knew she would. She was too stubborn to let the neighborhood think she was hiding. At 3:30 p.m., Linda grabbed the mic to kick off the program, thanking sponsors and introducing the annual slideshow of community highlights. That's when I spotted Julia. She dressed to impress, a sleek sundress, hair perfectly styled, makeup on point. She looked radiant, ready to shut down the gossip and prove she was still the polished woman everyone knew. She caught my eye near the stage and gave me a frosty nod. I flashed a warm smile and waved back. "And now," Linda announced, "we have a special presentation from Mark Brennan, who's put together a slideshow about fresh starts and new chapters." Julia's brow furrowed. She hadn't known I was part of the program. I took the mic, facing the 200 neighbors, friends, and local bigwigs. "Thanks, Linda. When I think about fresh starts, I think about truth, How sometimes you gotta face ugly realities to move forward. I clicked the remote, and the first image lit up the screen behind me. A wedding photo of Julia and me, 16 years ago, young and grinning, full of dreams. This is how my marriage began, I said, with love, trust, and the idea we'd tackle life as a team. The crowd murmured, some smiling at the sweet memory. I clicked again. The next image showed Julia and Victor walking into the Grandview Hotel, his hand on her back, both eager for what was next. This is how my marriage ended. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Julia's face was drained of color. My wife decided our vows were optional, I said, my voice steady over the park's speakers. That loyalty didn't matter, that she could have it all. I clicked through more photos, Julia and Victor holding hands at a bistro, kissing in the hotel lobby. For 5 months, she carried on with her boss, coming home to me every night, playing the devoted wife. Julia pushed through the crowd toward the stage, but people were too stunned to move out of her way. She called me a nobody, I went on, said I was too dense, too spineless to catch on. I clicked on the transcript of her phone call with Carla, blown up for everyone to read. These are her words bragging about how easy it was to fool her pathetic husband while sleeping with her boss. The crowd went dead silent, save for a few shocked whispers. All eyes locked on Julia, who'd nearly reached the stage. "Mark, stop this now," she yelled, voice cracking. "You can't do this." I looked down at the woman I'd loved for 16 years, who'd betrayed and mocked me, thinking she'd never get caught. "Actually, Julia, I can. Unlike you, I'm not scared of the truth." I clicked to the video from the company party, Julia and Victor grinding on each other, co-workers cheering. This is the woman who thought she was too good for our little neighborhood, too refined for her working-class husband, too clever to get busted. Julia was sobbing now, mascara streaking her face, her perfect facade in ruins. "Well, Julia, you got one thing wrong. This nobody was smart enough to see exactly who you are." I turned to the crowd, many now filming with their phones. "So yeah, this cookout's about fresh starts. My fresh start, free from a wife who thought she could cheat forever with no consequences." I handed the mic back to Linda, who looked like she wanted to vanish. Julia stood below the stage, tears streaming as 200 neighbors stared with judgment and disgust. "I hope you're all happy," she choked out. "Hope you enjoyed the show." She spun and bolted for the parking lot, shoving past people who parted to let her go. Carla, who'd come with her, tried to follow, but a few neighbors blocked her path. "You should be ashamed," Mrs. Larson snapped at Carla, helping her betray Mark like that. "You don't get it," Carla protested. "Julia was miserable. She deserved better." "She got what she deserved," Pete Sullivan said. "Cheaters always do." I watched from the stage as Julia's last allies were drowned out by the crowd's anger. The video had shown more than just infidelity. It exposed the cruel way Julia mocked me while living her double life. As people started to leave, many came up to me. "Good for you, Mark," said Greg Palmer, who'd shown up after hearing about my presentation. "Julia had it coming." "The way she treated you was vile," Rachel Carver added. Even Linda, uneasy with the public takedown, offered support. "I'm sorry you went through this, Mark, but maybe now you can move on." Packing up the projector, I felt a strange sense of closure. For months, Julia had held all the power, keeping secrets, living her double life, humiliating me at will. Now the tables had turned. She was the one exposed, shamed, and judged by everyone who mattered. My phone buzzed with a text from Julia. "I'll never forgive you for this." I texted back, "Good, we're square." But I wasn't quite finished. 3 weeks later, I was working late at my shop when an unexpected visitor appeared. Victor Hayes stood in the doorway, looking like he'd aged a decade since those hotel photos. "We need to talk," he said. I set down my soldering iron and met his eyes. "Do we? I can't think of anything we've got to say." "You ruined Julia's life. You tanked my career. Haven't you done enough?" I leaned back, taking in Victor Hayes, the hotshot exec who stole my wife. Victor stood in my shop looking like a shadow of the smug exec from the hotel photos, his shoulders slumped, his eyes tired. "You've ruined everything, Mark," he said, his voice low. "How'd I ruin your career, Victor?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "That video you sent to the whole company, those pictures at the cookout, it's all over the internet now. The board sacked me last week." "That's rough," I said, keeping my tone even. "But I didn't make you sleep with my wife." "Your marriage was already done," he shot back. "Julia told me you two were basically separated, just staying together for the house." I almost laughed. Is that what she fed you? That we were over? Victor's face paled. You weren't? Nope. Julia came home to me every night after your hotel hookups, telling me she loved me while planning her next round with you. She mentioned that? He sank into the chair across from my desk, looking gut-punched. She said you were just going through the motions, that it was all financial. And you bought it? I asked. He nodded, miserable. I wanted to believe her. She's incredible, driven, alive, everything my wife isn't. Your wife? I raised an eyebrow. You're married too? Yeah, he muttered. 20 years, 2 kids. She filed for divorce after that video hit. So Julia had torched 2 marriages, not just ours. Oddly, that eased the sting a bit. What do you want, Victor? I asked. Stop this, he said, almost pleading. The public shaming, the online posts, whatever else you've got planned. Julia's lost her job. Her family's cut her off. She's crashing with that friend of hers. Isn't that enough? I studied him, a man broken by his own choices, thinking his fling was a thrill with no cost. You know what Julia called me, Victor? Nobody. Spineless. Too dumb to notice. Too pathetic to act if I did. She was upset, he said weakly. People say things they don't mean. She said it before she was upset, when she thought she had me fooled, when she believed she was untouchable. Victor went quiet, staring at the floor. So this is all revenge? Proving you're not a nobody? It's about consequences, I said. Julia thought she could cheat, lie, and mock me with no fallout. She thought she was smarter, better, invincible. I showed her she wasn't. Now she's facing the music, just like you. He stood defeated. I hope you're happy, Mark. I hope wrecking 2 marriages was worth it. I didn't wreck them, I said. You and Julia did when you decided to betray your spouses. I just made sure the world saw it. After he left, I sat there, turning his words over. Was I happy? Has this been worth it? It wasn't black and white. I'd proven I wasn't the weakling Julia thought, made sure she paid for her betrayal, and showed our community who she really was. But I'd also burned every bridge. Our friends had picked sides, most mine, but those ties would never feel the same. I'd humiliated Julia so completely, there'd be no civil coexistence moving forward. My phone rang. It was my lawyer, Alan Ruiz. Mark, good news on the divorce settlement. Julia's lawyer says she'll accept our terms. No fight. Really, why? I asked. She's itching to get it over with and leave town. Got a job offer in Denver. Wants a clean slate. Denver, half a country away from the mess she'd made. Works for me, I said. One more thing. She's asking if you'll keep the affair out of the public record. Call it irreconcilable differences instead of adultery. I thought it over. The legal details didn't matter much. Everyone who needed to know already did. Tell her I'll agree, but on one condition. What's that? I want a handwritten letter from her. Not a text, not an email. She needs to own what she did and apologize. Not for getting caught, but for knowing it was wrong. I'll let her know, Alan said. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Julia's handwriting was as polished as ever, but I could see where her pen had dug into the paper, where her emotions had bled through. Mark, I know you hate me, and I don't blame you. What I did was unforgivable. I broke our vows, lied to you for months, and said awful things about you I didn't mean. My affair with Victor wasn't because you weren't enough. It was me being selfish, reckless, thinking I could have it all with no consequences. Julia's letter continued. You were a solid husband, Mark. You backed my career, put up with my bad days, and kept trying to make our marriage work even when I was pulling away. You deserve better than what I gave you. I called you a nobody, but I was wrong. Nobody wouldn't have fought back like you did, wouldn't have been sharp enough to gather all that evidence, or bold enough to show it to everyone we know. You're not a nobody, Mark. You're the man who loved me enough to build a life with me, and I threw it away for something that wasn't even real. I'm moving to Denver next month. I won't fight the divorce terms or cause you more trouble. I just want to fade away and try to piece together a new life from what's left. I'm sorry. It doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I see what I did to you, and I regret it. Julia, I read the letter 3 times, then tucked it into my desk drawer. It was as close to closure as I'd get. A month later, Julia was gone. The divorce was finalized, the house was mine, and I was single for the first time in 16 years. I expected to feel victorious, but mostly I just felt drained. My computer repair shop was doing better than ever. Word of Julia's affair had, weirdly, brought in more customers, folks who respected how I'd handled it. I'd started dipping my toe into dating. Nothing heavy, just grabbing coffee or dinner with women intrigued by my story. But late at night, I'd sometimes drift back to the early days with Julia, when we were happy, a real team, when I thought we were building something unbreakable. Those memories felt like someone else's life. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Carla Diaz at the supermarket. She looked uneasy when she saw me but didn't dodge. "Mark, how are you holding up?" she asked. "Doing all right, Carla. How's Julia?" "She's settling in. The Denver job's going okay. She's in therapy, trying to sort herself out." "Good," I said. "Hope she finds what she's after." Carla studied me. "Do you ever regret what you did? The way you aired it all out?" I thought it over. Did I regret exposing Julia's affair? The public shaming, torching every bridge instead of just quietly divorcing? "No," I said. "Julia made her choices, and I made mine. She thought I'd never push back, and she was wrong." "She never called you spineless," Carla said. "She was just lost, figuring out what she wanted." I fixed her with a look. "Carla, I heard the call. I know exactly what she said about me and how she said it. Don't try to rewrite it now." Her cheeks reddened. "She was just venting, Mark. People say stuff they don't mean when they're frustrated." "Maybe, but choices have consequences. Julia learned that the hard way." I grabbed my groceries and headed for the checkout. As I loaded bags into my truck, Carla caught up to me. "You know, Mark, Julia really did love you, even during the affair. She cared about you." I looked at her, this woman who'd egged Julia on and now wanted to guilt me over my response. "If that's what her love looks like, Carla, I'm better off without it." Driving home, I thought about the guy I was a year ago. The husband who worked long hours to support his wife's dreams, who believed in vows and partnership. That guy would have been gutted by Julia's betrayal, probably handled it quietly, with dignity, letting her walk away thinking she was better than everyone. Julia was right about one thing. That guy was a pushover, not because he lacked drive or class, but because he'd have let her skate. But I wasn't that guy anymore. Her betrayal had forged someone new, someone who fought back, who refused to be played, who made sure actions had consequences. I pulled into my driveway, my house now, not ours. The mortgage, the deed, all in my name. Every trace of Julia was gone. Inside, I poured a bourbon and sat in my living room, mulling over fresh starts and the cost of revenge. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel Carver. "Tom and I are hosting a barbecue this weekend. You should come. There's someone we want you to meet." I smiled and typed back, "Count me in." Maybe it was time to build something real, something honest, with someone who knew love wasn't just words but a choice you made daily. Julia had shown me what betrayal looked like. Now maybe I could find out what a true partnership felt like. I raised my glass to the empty room. "To new beginnings," I said out loud, "and to prove that nobody gets the last word."